Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to poker tournament strategy. Now here's your host, Clayton Fletcher.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. I'm your host, Clayton Fletcher, here in beautiful, sunny Point Pleasant, New Jersey. That's right, I have a friend, a close family friend, who hit me up earlier this week and said, you know, Clayton, no one's using the beach house this weekend if you feel like grinding some poker. So, yeah, with friends like that, I'm good to go. I'm living the Jersey Shore lifestyle. I give myself a nickname, CWOW. I kind of like it. I got a job at the local T-shirt shop. I have to make it short today, guys, because I have to get to the gym and get a tan and do some laundry. But before I can do any of that, I got to welcome back to the podcast an absolutely amazing guy, one of our best interviews we've ever had. He's a returning guest. He is an absolute crusher. He's got over $8 million in lifetime earnings, both online and live. And he is also, more importantly to me at least, the founder and CEO of the charity series of poker. You know him, you'll love him, Mr. Matthew Stout. Matt, how are you, buddy?
Pretty good.
Nice. Nice. So how's WSOP.com treating you? Last time I saw it, you were just like cashing in everything. Is it still going well?
Yeah, I've cashed in a few of the bracelet events. I haven't had quite the Gator circuit events now with the bracelet events going on, but I'm gonna catch a little heat at the end, I think.
Yeah.
Been saving it.
Yeah, you got to get hot when the timing is timing is everything. You got to get hot at the right moment. Nobody wants to cash. I mean, yeah, sure, it's fine to make a final table in like a $400 turbo, but you're waiting for the big money at the end, right?
Of course. I mean, min cashing and finishing eighth is not going to pay the bills, so especially with a baby now, there's more bills than ever, and those top three spots are really where I'd like to be every time I final table.
Of course, and you're all about that dad life now. How is the baby? Everybody wants to know.
He is unbelievable. I get up with him like half the mornings at like 6 o'clock in the morning. I never thought I would be excited to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Smile, just excited for what the day is going to bring. I'm like, oh, look at that. Someone who doesn't understand life yet. It's cute. He's still positive and all these things are good. He's just like excited to be alive another day. It's a beautiful thing. He's amazing.
The joy of not understanding life yet. Yeah, it's a wonderful thing.
Like, that baby has no idea that Donald Trump's president.
And good for him. Good for him.
It's nice. It's nice. It must be nice.
Yeah. So I know you wanted to talk about a hand that you played, and I'm very interested in hearing your thoughts and getting a little bit into your poker mind. But first, I got to ask you, what's going on with CSOP? It must be really hard to keep things going when everything's shut down. Have you been able to do any events?
Oh, no. Unfortunately, so far we're just starting to plan our St. Jude online event. Going to try to put together something online for Three Square as well. Still working on final logistics on where we're going to be hosting that so that everyone will be able to play. And we should be up and running with that pretty soon with all the info and a landing page where you can buy into the St. Jude event, which is going to be Saturday, September 12th. We're working on trying to replicate the live event that we were supposed to have in April as best we can in terms of having a Zoom feed as well as the online tournament so people can have one browser tab open with the tournament running and one browser tab with our MC talking about St. Jude and all the amazing things they do for childhood cancer research and treatment. And really just kind of doing our best to deal with the pandemic, trying to adjust. And we are tentatively planning an event benefiting a local autism charity, FEAT, F-E-A-T. Planning that one for November 13th, but keeping our ear to the street and seeing if it's going to be feasible by then. Otherwise, we'll probably just move that on event online as well. But the St. Jude event on September 12th is going to be a lot of fun. We're still going to be playing for a World Series Poker main event seat for first, and going to try to do our best to really have a good time with it and benefit one of the most amazing causes I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean St. Jude's is my absolute favorite charity, so I'll be there. I'll at least donate a few buy-ins to the cause, if nothing else. Always happy to participate. For those who have never attended one of Matt's charity series of poker events, they're so much fun. If you've never played in a charity tournament, the vibe is totally different. First of all, half the people there are just wealthy people who want to do something for a good cause, and they don't even know how to play. And the drinks are flowing, everyone's laughing. And of course it's poker, but it's a totally different brand of poker, wouldn't you say?
For sure, that's kind of what we're going for. It's definitely a grind for us a lot of the time when we play the game for a living and have to try to take it so seriously all the time. So it's a lot of fun for us to just be able to kind of kick back and have a lot of fun playing, not really care about the result, not care about how we play each hand, and just be idiots and have change for everybody while he encourages everyone to play as recklessly as he normally does. An altogether different experience. And whether you're like, I know a lot of people are also intimidated by the idea of playing against like a bunch of big name pros, because we have a decent number of them at each event, but it's really just a great opportunity for people who are intimidated by playing poker in a casino to play it in a completely relaxed environment, have some drinks. You'll have World Poker Tour and World Series Poker champions sitting there like having a few drinks, and they'll explain to you like how the blinds work and whose turn it is to act, and no one really cares. They don't get frustrated like they would if you went into like a regular game and had no idea what was going on and were slowing down the action.
Yeah, one of the first CSOP events that I attended, I sat at a table with Paul Wasika and Daniel Negreanu, and the three of us were probably the poker players at the table, and everybody else had no idea what they were doing. And I think that the three of us did about 100 rebuys. Well, there was just this absolutely crazy drunk rich guy that just was winning every hand with any two cards, and it really does show you, any two will do, especially in a charity event, where the whole point is that every time you bust out, you have to do a rebuy, and then those rebuys go to the cause. So we always encourage everybody to play a little bit crazy, but this guy was taking it next level, and I swear Negreanu couldn't win a hand against him. It was funny.
Yeah, you get a lot of that, and I'm sure Negreanu didn't care. It's hard to care in these events where, like, once you get really deep and there's a World Series Poker main event seed or a large amount of cash on the line, people start to get a little bit serious about it. But, I mean, until you get down to the final table, it's just all a lot of drinking and laughing, and that usually continues at the final table as well, while, like, 2 or 3 people take it seriously.
Yeah, but even the ones who are taking it seriously have, like, 4 big blinds at that point, so we'll see who wins.
Yeah, you don't want to waste people's time too much with these events.
Yeah, it's a turbo, a super turbo, if you will. So I'm looking forward to the next one. I hope that the November one gets to go off without a hitch. I'd love to attend if possible, but if nothing else, we will share the link. If you will send it to me, Matt, we'll share the link for the September event, online event for St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. So we're all about it here. So
we appreciate it, buddy.
So what else is happening in your world? Are you in Vegas?
About doing a podcast. I was like, obviously.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, Vegas right now. Yeah.
All right, so you're in Vegas. It's 148 degrees, I assume.
I don't know. I don't leave my house.
Smart man.
I get some really good air conditioning. Keeps it nice and cold in here. I have no idea what's going on outside these doors.
That's the way to go. Well, we love you. We really appreciate you coming on the podcast. Now let's talk about poker. When you sit down to play in one of these, WSOP.com. Now, I've been kidding around about how they're calling it a World Series of Poker, but it's not even a U.S. Series of Poker. It's really just a 2 states series of poker. So when you compete with your fellow Nevadans, as well as those of us that make it to New Jersey, come hell or high water, do you start off with kind of a game plan in mind? I know you spent a lot of time on this site. have you noticed kind of general patterns, or do you just kind of see how things go?
I like to say I always try to be the chameleon. Not really thing with a set game plan. Usually I want to see how my table's playing, react to it, see how the fields are, and adapt to that. I already have a pretty good idea of who's who and who plays how, since I play on this site a lot more than most people do. So I've been playing against a lot of these New Jersey regs for years, and I've been able to get a lot of those tags in and a lot of hands noted so that I have a better idea than most of who's going to be punting and who's actually there to win. And but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't think of it as like a set game plan. I mean, just trying to make money for the family right now. However I need to make that money, whether it's playing tight, playing loose, going after it, I try to be ready to adapt and do whatever I need to do.
Now, how excited do you get when you open up one of your WSOP.com tables and you see Clay Fletch right there on your screen? Does that make your mouth water? I mean, is that like a yum situation or what?
I mean, it's pretty dreamy, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, don't lie. Whatever you do, please don't lie.
Yeah, I mean, it's we know there's going to be some big pots. We're going to be splashing around a little. It's good times.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the most conservative player, as all of our listeners already know. So yeah, we'll get in there and mix it up.
It's hard to win pots by folding.
Yeah, I don't like folding. Folding's no good. I mean, folding to me is like giving up, so it's just not really a big part of my strategy. So another thing that's been new for you is you're a Twitch streamer now. How is that going? Tell everybody about your Twitch stream.
I finally got around to getting set up so that I can stream some twitching. I've been planning on doing this for a while. I mostly just the charities that CSOP supports, raise some money for them. Now with the plan of doing some online events, it ties in really well so that I have a better finger on the pulse of what's going on in the Twitch community, and am able to have an idea of what works, what doesn't work, and what we should try to focus on to try to make the CSOP Twitch stream successful. It's been fun so far. Justin Kelly is awesome and did a lot to help me get set up with a nice layout, and did a bunch of custom video clips for me so that I can play ridiculous things like Kenny Powers saying, "You're fucking out," when I boss people, and it's spoiler any of my others, but I have several video clips lined up from my favorite shows and movies, and I play them when it's appropriate or inappropriate, however you want to look at it, during the stream. And I've been having fun with it so far. Don't have a huge following yet, but got to start putting in the work if I want to get that following going.
We can certainly help with that. What is the link? Twitch.tv/
Matt Stout Poker.
All right, MattStoutPoker on Twitch. So definitely want to check that out. I've peeked in on you once or twice. I think you should go ahead and spring for the rights to some decent music, if I may.
Well, yeah, that's one of the issues. I found out that if I played any copyrighted music, that they were supposedly going to kick me off Twitch or ban me or not let me stream. But apparently they've loosened that a little bit, so people are back to playing normal music. I had to just go on YouTube and find some non-copyrighted music so that me silently trying to play 10 tables when I wasn't analyzing hands wasn't going to be too boring.
A lot of our listeners would probably love to just watch you do that and try to figure out what you're doing and why. Is it cards up? You have a delay?
Cards up, 5-minute delay. 4-minute right now. I'm probably going to up it to 5. Interesting thing happened the other day. I was playing a pot in the bracelet against Max Pescatori, and I ended up making a big fold on the river. And right as I opened up his Twitch stream to find out what he had, I realized before I even folded that if I had time banked, I would have seen his hand.
Ooh.
Yeah, he only had his stream delay set to 3 minutes. So I went in and I was like, "Max, you need to increase your delay, buddy. I could have seen your hand before I folded." And he was like, "Oh, shit." So he increased his hopefully to 5 minutes. I think what you need, they call it getting stream sniped. So I think that it's really important to be careful about that. I'm probably going to up mine from 4 minutes back to 5. It hurts viewer engagement because then it's 1 extra minute from when you type something in chat or whenever I see it to when I actually reply on the stream. So it's harder to have a flow of conversation with the viewers that way, but obviously my game security needs to come first, and I need to make sure that I'm not just showing my opponent my cards before they make their decision after time banking the river.
For sure. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that you would need a whole 5 minutes, but I guess especially in some of the higher stakes games, people really do take their time in making all their decisions, and a hand that has a lot of action, it could take a 5 minute. Yeah, I can see where it would take more than 4 minutes anyway.
Yeah, I mean, even just assuming it just goes back call or check call, whatever, like it can be, assume 3 actions per street, 45 seconds, pre-flop, 45 seconds on the flop. It can easily get up to 3-4 minutes in a hand without people using their time bank.
Matt, do you find that when you're doing a Twitch stream that you are more or less focused on what you're doing because you know people are watching, or do you think it doesn't have an effect on you either way?
I mean, it can have a minor effect, but I'm not that concerned about it. I assume that people have a pretty good idea of how I play anyway. I've played on plenty of live streamed and televised final tables. I've played in W Coops with whole cards up. So it can definitely have an impact, but I don't think it's an enormous impact. And I don't think that it's going to really make all that much of a difference one way or another. I could easily be wrong about that, but I mean, it can make a difference. Like if someone saw that I bluffed them a few minutes earlier and I don't know that they're watching the stream, they may be more likely to call me down later after. But I mean, there's a lot of meta that I'm only privy to half the information on, but I'm not really all that concerned about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you tend to stay one step ahead of the curve, as it were. So that's cool. I'm glad you're doing that. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm sure that everyone will check out your Twitch, Matt Stout Poker. All right, so why don't we get into some strategy? You mentioned that you had a hand we could talk about.
Yep. I found a fun one that I played heads up at the final table of the ACR 215 125K
Nice.
A couple months ago during probably my biggest online heater ever. Had 4 wins and 8 final tables with well over 300K in winnings, net profit 270K in a week.
That's a pretty good week.
Suck. It didn't suck at all.
Yeah, I'd say that's a fine week. All right, so what we'll do when we get to your turn to make a decision, before you tell us what you did, we'll talk about what you could do, and we'll go from there. How's that?
Sounds good. So we start off the hand about 29 big blinds deep. He raises on the button, and I defend with Jack 4 of clubs.
Okay, so we're in the big blind.
Yep, big blind, Jack 4 of clubs. The blinds are 16 and 32K, and he has 9.2.
Great.
I have about 21 million, so I have him about 2.2 to 1 in chips. He min raises to 640,000. I call with Jack 4 of clubs, pretty standard, heads up.
Sure.
Flop comes 8-4 deuce with 2 clubs. Obviously a pretty dreamy flop for my junky hand. I check, he bets 340K, which is just barely over 1 big blind and about a quarter pot.
So we could raise here. I think probably most of us would raise here. Like, I mean, I would be happy to get it in. You got a pair and a flush draw heads up against, a fairly aggressive opponent. Is there any?
If we were playing full ring against like an early position raise, I wouldn't be as inclined to raise for value.
Yeah, but any pair heads up is probably good a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to get value out of worse heads up here than it would be in other spots. So it's definitely a hand that I'm more liable to raise in this spot.
All right, so now we just have to talk about sizing. I mean, you have it's 29 big blinds effective, right?
Yep. So stack to pot ratio wise, once I call the 340, there'll be about 2 million in the middle, and he has 8 million back. So we're still playing like 4 stack to pot rate.
Okay, so SPR is around 4.
Yeah, SPR when we started the flop action was like 6.5 to 7.
Oh, okay. All
But
right.
now once I call the 340 on the flop, my raise sizing will be based on a shallower stack to pot ratio. So I check raise here to 1.64 million. So
Okay.
it's about two-thirds pot, two-thirds, three-quarters pot.
And it's about 4.5 times the original bet. Is that right?
Yeah, his sizing was super small. So this is one other thing that a lot of people kind of fall into the trap of. When your opponent bets really small, it doesn't mean that you should their sizing. You should be basing it on the size of the pot and the price that you're laying your opponent there for. So I think of it more in terms of what percentage of the pot am I betting, regardless of what sizing they used. So in my head, I look at it more as once I call 340, there's 2 million in the pot, I raise 1.3. So I raise two-thirds pot. Because I'm raising 1.3 more on top of 340, and if I called the 340, there were 2 million. Yeah, I expect to get called here a lot of times by overcards, straight draws, ace three, 3-5, even 6-5 is a double gutter. And he may just call and float with 6-7 or 5-7 for a gut shot, even especially if he has a backdoor flush draw with it. So these are sort of the hands I'm targeting. And if he has a deuce X, he may call a check raise on the flop, even though it's going to be hard to get more value out of that on future streets.
Right. Now, what is the plan? I assume that if he shoves, we're just going to happily call it off, right?
I mean, I wouldn't say happily, but yeah, we're definitely calling it off. We expect to potentially be beat by 8x a lot or a better 4 even if he does shove, but definitely not going to check raise fold this hand. We have too much equity against pretty much any hand he could possibly have because if he has a better flush draw than we have a pair and are ahead now, if he has even if he has a set, we're only a 3-1 dog, which obviously isn't ideal, but is also super unlikely heads up.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I really like this idea of not basing your raise size on the bet size because when we base it on the other player's bet size, we're effectively allowing that player to dictate, to some degree our action. So some players might bet really small, expecting you to, if you do raise, to kind of keep things manageable, and you just throw that out the window. You say, I'm going to do two-thirds of the pot, regardless of the fact that you only bet a quarter of the pot. And so that kind of shoves it back in his face a little bit. I really like that. I mean, that's a really good tip for our listeners who might be used to just saying, well, I'm going to 3x.
Yeah, because if I 3x his quarter pot bet, I'm only raising like 1/3 of the pot, and I'm leaving him some of like so it's just too small. It's giving him too much control too. You're letting him get away with what he's trying to do and keeping the pot small.
Yeah.
We kind of retake control of how we want to size it instead of letting them dictate whether they want to go big or go small on sizings.
I love it. From a metagame standpoint, kind of part of my approach to poker, I want to see if you agree with this kind of generally. I like to try to figure out what my opponent wants me to do and then disappoint him if possible.
Yeah, of course.
Right? So it's kind of the opposite of comedy where I try to figure out what the audience wants and try to give it to them. In poker, I just try to give them the opposite of what they actually want. So, but it's still about reading people and trying to figure out what they want. And so I think that sometimes when we get into a GTO mindset, if you will, we forget that there's another human being who has a desired outcome on the other end. And if you play too mathematically and you're not trying to read into, well, why would this guy bet so small? One reason is because he might be trying to keep the pot manageable. And then when you make this big raise, when he was trying to entice you to either just call or make a much smaller raise, then you effectively disappoint him, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm just trying to take him outside his comfort zone. I'm trying to make sure that he's not going to accomplish. So, I mean, I love GTO for short stack play, but I don't worry that much about how a solver would approach a lot of the deep stack situations because playing GTO is going to miss too much juice against the people I'm playing against. I'm not in there trying to battle with the super high rollers. So most of the tournaments I play are going to be good value tournaments that are going to have plenty of soft spots that you'd be missing a lot of juice by playing GTO against.
How do you think you would fare, by the way, if you did step into that high roller world? I mean, do you have that? Do you do that kind of study? Where do you think you could, if you had to be a GTO bot, do you think you could do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I have it in me to put in the hours, put in the work, learn everything I need to learn. I just kind of got to a point in my career where I had to decide if I wanted to have a normal life and have balance and be able to focus on CSOP and do all these other things, or if I really just wanted to go full time, play poker and do nothing else. And I couldn't choose the latter, even if I thought that I in the world didn't fit with my overall personal mission and what I wanted to do. Like, I wanted to have a family, I wanted to have kids. It's not really feasible to try to have that life of balancing life or balancing like family life and super high roller life. So I didn't want to travel as much. I was already kind of burnt out on traveling. I decided to play less tournaments, focus on CSOP, play a lot more PLO cash. I play a ton at Aria now, like 5-5-10, 25-25, whatever runs. I play bigger if the games are really good. But I wanted to be able to travel less, stay home more, play online a little bit, play live cash, be able to dictate my own hours, decide when I'm going to go home and see my son before bed, and not just be like, well, I'm still in.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah.
All right, so enough digression. We have check raised, and then what happened?
So, we're still in a poker hand. Would you look at that?
Yeah, let's
Crazy.
refresh. We have a Jack 4 of clubs, heads up for the title on ACR. We called a raise from out of position and then flopped middle pair and a flush draw and check raised it big.
Yep, flop 8-4 deuce. We check raised 320 or 340 to 1.64 million. He calls, so now there's 4.6 million in the pot. He has 6.9 million behind. So the turns an offsuit king, boards 8-4 deuce king. I decide to continue betting for value. I still expect to get called by some straight draws, maybe have him spaz out if I bet the right sizing, and he may just bluff all in, a semi-bluff all in with a straight draw, or with a worse 4, or even with a deuce. So I decided to go with a sizing of 2.64 million, which I don't like in retrospect. I think I should have actually bet probably something along the lines of 1.8 million and give him more perceived fold equity to try to semi-bluff.
Yeah, I like that. The idea of perceived fold equity, because if you bet smaller, he might say, well, I still have, 6 million more on top, so I can maybe get Stout to fold whatever it is that he's betting here. But when you bet, the sizing you did, he might not feel like he can actually spaz out, or we might not be able to convince him to spaz out because he might not think that he can get you off of whatever you're betting.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things that I like about reviewing my own hands, the opportunity to identify what I didn't like about what I did in game and try to get better about fixing those things in game, which is difficult. I mean, you have 15 seconds to act plus time bank or whatever. You're often on other tables. I'm pretty sure I was on a couple other tables at this point. So I don't have all that much time, so I'm not going to come up with the same result as I will when I have like 4 minutes sitting here looking at the flop after we just go into a digression, and then 5 to 10 minutes later I've had all this time to think about what sizing I want to use on the turn, and then I see myself bet 2.6 and I'm like, ew.
Gross. No, I mean, hand history review is very important. Even a tournament that you won, like you win this tournament, right? But you still probably made a lot of plays that you would like to have played better. I mean, it didn't affect the outcome because you still had the best possible outcome of winning first place, but you learn from reviewing your hands. I like when I have a tournament where I played a lot of hands, because I ran deep, and then go back and say, well, I could have done a lot better in this tournament if I would have, done some different things sizing wise, or maybe, in my case, not try to win every pot so much.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's good to go buy some breaks, Eventually you want to slow down. You'll learn one day. It's fine. I went back and forth at the beginning of my career. I started out just psycho aggressive. Just my standard C bet was to like double barrel and bomb river unless you raised me ever. Just no matter what the run out was, no matter what my hand was, it was just pure unbridled aggression. And then I realized I was a nit and I went off the deep end again. But this time I had a little more of an idea of how to play, and then just went off the deep end of psycho aggression. Had to reel it in again. It was just like a back and forth earlier in my career, which was like moneymaker era time when it didn't matter if you thought about how you were playing your hands, you were already ahead of 90% of the competition. They were just flicking chips in and just seeing who wins.
Those were the good old days.
Yeah.
All right. So we have a 2.6. And so we were hoping that our opponent might spaz out with a worse 4 or something, or straight draw.
Or just continue heroing us with ace high, or
yeah,
call
that's
the worst
fine.
4, whatever. There's call one more time with straight draws, especially 3-5. Ace 3, ace 5 both have some showdown value, so they may call this turn hoping he goes check on the river if they brick, and 6 call again since they're both double gutted or open ended. I expect him to probably fold out like the 6-7 suited, 5-7 suited gut shots though, which are hands that I could have just checked turn and tried to go for a check shove to try to induce one more bet out of those. But we decided to bet 2.6 into 4.6. He calls, and now we're only playing half pot effective on the river, which is another important concept. Is that on the turn I should have planned this so that deeper on the river makes it easier for me to navigate how to play some rivers if we're slightly deeper. It's harder to expect him to bluff for less than half pot, for example. So I would have liked to have bet 1.8 instead of 2.6 on the turn to leave him 5.1 on the river, and that way we would also have another. So we'd have 5 million into like 8.6 instead of 4.3 into 9.9 million.
I agree that on the turn, 1.8 is a better sizing than 2.6, but I wonder if the check raise that you mentioned a minute ago isn't the best play of all.
Right. I do love the check raise line. It's one of my favorites to take. It's because a lot of times, especially now, it seems like a lot of people are calling check raises to see if you're light and see if you're going to barrel, and then they just snap fold turn. So the more and more I see that, the more and more I love going back to the old school double or triple check raise attempt, which is a good way to try to get them to float the check raise or call with a medium strength hand and see if we can induce another bet on the turn before we check raise them off their weak draws and things like that.
You know, we were actually just talking about this a few weeks ago with one of our TPE coaches, Jason Smith, and he was telling me that he has gotten into the habit of floating a lot of check raises on the flop because so many players are implementing the check raise strategy on the flop and then giving up like close to 100% of the time on the turn unless they actually have something. So he's calling a lot of those check raises and then taking it away on the turn with the float. So now you're counteracting that strategy by check raising the turn as well. So I think maybe mixing that in a little bit more going forward is probably a good idea because, you know, players are getting kind of hip to the idea that this flop check raise isn't always, super strong value.
You said it yourself earlier. I'm always trying to stay one step ahead. So.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so now we just have half the pot left on the river here. So we're pretty pot committed, I would say.
Pot committed, but how do you play it?
Right. So
how would Clayton Fletcher play it?
What's the card?
River's an 8, pairs the board. So final board is 8-4 deuce with 2 clubs, offsuit king, offsuit 8, 8-4 deuce, king 8.
Okay. Well, you already said yourself that because of the sizing on the turn, our opponent only has a half the pot bet size left, so he's less likely to bluff for that sizing than he would be had we left him closer to a pot size bet behind. So for that reason, and for that reason only, I think the play here is to bet. Now we could bet small, really, really small, and just see if we can eke out a little more value or see if we can get him to spaz. But again, with him having such a small stack now, I just think I would put it all in and, expect to sometimes get called by better. But usually when we're called, I still think our pair of fours is going to be just fine.
Yeah, I just had a tough time coming up with what he's going to call river with. I guess he could call with deuce X and it'll go check check if he does have deuce X, and I missed some value there. But I figured that if he does have a four, we're chopping now, so I don't care if it goes check check, because even if I had him kick it on a four, that's now a chop. Uh, if he did float me with overs or whatever and turn a king, it's going to go in regardless.
Yeah, that sucks, but it happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to go in regardless if he has both likely to get him, and I'm more likely to get him to spaz out with 3-5 or 6-7 if I check, or even ace-3, ace-5 if he decides not to take his ace-high showdown value. And those are hands that might have called a shove on the river anyway, too. So that's worth consideration in addition to the deuce X. So, like, the deuce X and the ace-high calls are an argument for value betting and value shoving the river. But I felt like I probably wasn't getting called by those hands for the river shove, even though for half pot, I guess he just ends that way. But I really felt like I wanted to get busted flush draws. I mean, he could have a worse flush draw. Obviously, I blocked those. But the hands I was mostly targeting by checking river were 6-7 and 3-5. 6-7 bricked its double gutter, 3-5 or 5-6, not 6-7. Because 5-6 bricks its double gutter, 3-5 bricks its open ender. I don't block either of those hands. Those hands are also more likely for him to have than the unpaired hands. So all the deuce X's are blocked by the deuce on the board, and he doesn't necessarily raise as many of them pre. But I think 3-5 especially suited, and definitely 4, mostly just going with a raise or fold strategy. So I figured he's probably raising those. I check, he shoves, and I beat him to the pot because I had already decided if he shoves, I'm calling. And he had the 3-5 offsuit for the busted open ender.
Wow, and he still tried to bluff it, even though now his river shove gives you such an enticing price. I don't think there are too many hands you can fold. I mean, I guess if you had just a busted flush draw yourself, that's really his only bluff target, really, right? If you didn't have a pair.
Yeah, this is like also his. It's the perfect hand for him to bluff too, because it's just absolutely no showdown value. So even if I just fold whatever random hand that plays the board, it's a huge win for him. That's why I wanted to put him in that spot. I felt like he was going to have a hand that just couldn't call the river a lot of the time.
Yeah, no, this is a really interesting hand. I'm surprised that he would go for it there, but I understand, theoretically, you want to have the bottom of your range. And when you have the bottom of your range, you should be more likely to bluff than when you have showdown value. And obviously 5 high is never going to win the pot. So yeah, if he can occasionally get you to fold a hand that, like you said, plays the board or whatever.
Hand. The ultimate bottom of your range hand.
Yeah, 5 high. So yeah, that does make sense. Yeah, well, nice hand. So yeah, you got him to spaz. Even though, yeah, I do think in retrospect, on 4th Street, your sizing is too big. It still worked out, and you got him to eventually spaz out. So nice work.
Thank you, sir. Worked out just fine.
Yeah. And how much did you win for that one? Do you remember?
$23K.
That's a good day at the office.
It was a good start. I actually, that was very shortly after I found out that my great nephew Jason, who's 2 years old, his cancer had spread to his spinal fluid, where there was, quote, nothing the doctors could do. So Brian told me poker, and I was like, no, I'm just going to use this as my motivation to crush, and spent a week winning everything before I took a month off to drive across the country for his memorial. And now my nephew, the baby's father, who's 23, moved in with me. I've been close with him since he was really young, and I'm trying to help him get through this. And this is one of the big motivations for me in supporting St. Jude now more than ever.
Wow. Well, I'm just so sorry for your loss and your family's loss. And, you're a good man, taking somebody in like that and, helping your family out where you can. I think family's very important too. And, just some things in the world are actually more important than poker. And so one thing I love about talking to you is that you seem to have the proper balance. Like, yeah, maybe you're not playing in the super high roller bowl against the Germans who live, drink, breathe, and sleep the game, but you do have your priorities in line, and I for one really appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I think we've taken up enough of your time. You want anything you want to tell people? Are you doing any coaching? Do you want people to follow you on Twitter? Like, what can I do for you now that you've helped me out by being my guest?
Sure. Twitter is Matt Stout Poker, same as my Twitch. And yeah, I do private coaching, 200 for 1 hour, 350 for 2 hours. You can reach me at mattstoutpoker@gmail. If you want more information on that.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming back on the show. Continued success. I hope that I don't see you at the tables on WSOP.com. So for Matt Stout and for everyone here at Tournament Poker Edge, I'm Clayton Fletcher. Thank you all so much for listening.
Hold 'em like they do in Texas, please. Fold 'em, let 'em hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. Luck and intuition, play the cards with babes to start. And after she's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on her heart. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Can't read, no, she can't read a my poker face. She's got to love nobody. Can't read, no, she can't read a my poker face. She's got to love nobody. Poker face, poker face. Poker face, poker face. I wanna roll with her, a hard pair we will be. While little gambling is fun when you're with me. I love it. Russian roulette is not the same without a gun. And baby, when it's love, it's not rough, it isn't fun.